Welcome, everybody. So today we are happy to host Mr. Radoica LUBURIC from the Central Bank of Montenegro, who is the Executive Director of the Central Bank. He has obtained his first studies in 1990, and then in 2007, he got his Master of Science in Economics, and in 2016, he got his PhD in Economics, and he served at the government at various capacities, and since 2010, he's the Executive Director of the Central Bank of Montenegro. And he's today going to talk about crisis prevention and the coronavirus pandemic, challenges, risks, and opportunities. Mr. LUBURIC, thank you very much for this presentation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mahmoud. Good day, everybody. I would like to greet you at the beginning of this presentation and to wish successful symposium. My presentation is called Crisis Prevention and Coronavirus Pandemic, Challenges, Risks, and Opportunities. Well, let's make a start. Dear colleagues, the world faces many challenges today. The coronavirus pandemic is still unfolding before our eyes, and is in the focus of this presentation, primarily from the aspect of preventive crisis management. Unlike previous epidemics and pandemics, coronavirus infected almost every country in the world in just a few months, significantly paralyzed all social and economic activities, changed the way people live, think, and work, and unfortunately, has already taken a huge number of human lives. All the controversies that accompany this pandemic will only truly come to light when dust has settled and things completely come down. It can already be said, however, that while coronavirus pandemic has highlighted a number of the advantages of a digitalized and globalized world, it has also pointed out its numerous risks and dangers. This pandemic, in fact, has in many ways stripped bare the world in which we live, revealing all its virtues and flaws. Without considering the external and internal context in which this crisis takes place, as well as some of the events and processes that came first, it is very difficult to understand all the complexity of the current pandemic. While the world has been changing dramatically and rapidly in recent decades, many organizations and states, as well as the entire population, have not always reacted in a timely and adequate manner to the threats and dangers that have been increasing every day. Many researchers claim that, with the exception of famine, which has been humanity's worst enemy for thousands of years, nothing has killed as many people as viruses, bacteria, and parasites. Neither all were studied together, nor natural disasters like earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. Bearing all that in mind, the question rightly arises: how is it possible that this pandemic surprised us so much and found us so unprepared? And whether this crisis could have been better managed preventively? Let us remember that old saying, prevention is better than cure. This saying did not come into being suddenly, neither in one day, nor in 1 year. It sprang from life and has been tested and confirmed over the centuries. The essence of preventive management is continual, complete and comprehensive thinking about both potential risks and potential opportunities, all in order to prevent unwanted consequences. This is achieved by operating a system of complex processes from which the following relevant groups stand out, as shown in figure. In period of crisis such as coronavirus pandemic, Without effective preventive management based on quality management, risk management and change management, as well as risk-based thinking and crisis-based thinking, there cannot be successful crisis management. Risk-based thinking and crisis-based thinking are a new management concept of preventive action, with primary goal of preventing undesirable results and preserving the value of the organization. Experience has shown us that it's much better to solve any problems and incidents on time, rather than to allow them to turn into a crisis. What then are problems and what are incidents? Simply put, problems are visible and invisible barriers met on the way to achieving goals. Incidents are the consequences of problems that have not been resolved in a timely and adequate manner. According to an international quality standard, an incident is defined as an event that can be or could lead to a disruption, loss, emergency, or crisis. How do crises arise? A crisis is most often the result of accumulated problems and incidents that have not been successfully resolved in a timely manner. A British standard, which deals with crisis management, defines a crisis as an abnormal and unstable situation that threatens the organization's strategic objectives, reputation, or viability. Please read the picture. As shown in figure, problems are foreseeable. Incidents are usually foreseeable, while crises are unique, rare. Some elements are foreseeable and others unforeseeable. While problems are manifestation of ongoing barriers and incidents are gradual failures with warning signs, crises are often sudden and unexpected because system of prediction, recognition, and early warning did not work. For solving problems, ad hoc solutions are often applicable, while incidents can be resolved by applying appropriate predefined procedures and planned resources. On the other hand, crises cannot always be resolved by established procedures and plans. They require change and innovation, a design, timely, flexible, strategic, and sustainable response. And when it comes to such a global and total crisis as the coronavirus pandemic, an adequate global response is required. However, bearing in mind certain specifics exist at the local level. In addition to global one, appropriate local response is also needed. Crisis prevention is a very complex process that requires new ways of thinking and new knowledge, much of which comes from the areas of quality management, risk management, and change management. According to an international quality standard, quality management is based on 7 principles, and benefits of their implementation on crisis prevention are shown in following figures. All quality management principles, both individually and in total, provide significant benefits to crisis prevention, contribute to promoting a culture of change and a culture of improvement, as well as more effective and efficient management in general. Quality management principles, graded on a scale from 1 to 7, showed key influence of people on all crisis prevention processes, depending on the external and internal context, as well as a number of other factors. The impact of principles changes, but the role and importance of people is always indispensable and crucial. Where there are people, there are changes, And that always brings with it both risks and opportunities. An international quality standard explains that purpose of risk management is the creation and the protection of value. The 8 risk management principles in terms of crisis prevention, as well as their impact on value creation and protection, are shown in following figures. The risk management principles, graded on a scale from 1 to 8, showed key impact of integrating risk into all organizational activities, as well as, once again, the indispensable and crucial impact of people on all processes of value creation and protection, depending on the external and the internal context, and especially on people's behavior, culture, and risk culture. The ranking of the impact of these principles also changes in every concrete situation. To improve overall processes, quality standards both in the fields of quality management and risk management make use of PDCA methodology. In essence, this cycle seeks answers to 4 key questions, as shown in figure. Each completed cycle has to lead to the start of a new cycle with a new plan, new information, and a new application of acquired knowledge and experience from previous cycles. Each following cycle has an improved plan, improved processes and activities, improved checks and analysis, as well as other new improvements. Simply put, each new cycle represents an improvement of improved improvements. Improvement of improved improvements. There is no successful crisis prevention without a continual review of all processes in the organization, their continual improvement, and their innovation. Starting from the fact that everything is a system made up of subsystems that are in constant interaction with the changing environment, it can be concluded that everything is subject to change. The problem is not in change, if it is managed successfully, but in the fact the subsystem often do not change at the same speed and in the same way. This is very important for crisis prevention and management. And so we need to create an effective model to put everything in its place. The model is made up of 7 phases, as shown in following figure. Crisis prevention model. Phase 1. According to an international quality standard, an organization is defined by its identity and context. The identity of an organization is determined by its characteristics based on its mission, vision, values, and culture. Phase 2. Top management bears the greatest responsibility for all successes and failures of the organization. Its task, among others, is to create the necessary conditions that enable employees to resolve the causes of problems and incidents before the emergence of a potential crisis. At the same time, everybody in the organization must be ready to look for and take advantage of any opportunities that arise. Phase 3. In this model, quality management principles and risk management principles work together and for each other. As we have already seen, there are numerous benefits that these principles bring to organizations in crisis prevention. Of particular importance is their great influence in changing the way of thinking among all stakeholders. This new way of thinking creates new behaviors and then improve the business culture with the aim of preventing a crisis and achieving sustained success. Phase 4. There cannot be successful crisis prevention without the successful management of change and conflict. It is very important that changes are first successfully implemented in stable conditions in order to be employed successfully in crisis situations. There is no effective and efficient change management without a developed culture of dialogue and, above all, without mutual trust and mutual respect. A culture of dialogue actually encourages constructive conflicts that have an integrative character and are desirable, unlike destructive conflicts that lead to disintegration. Phase 5. There are 3 supporting pillars of created crisis prevention model, as shown in figure. For successful prevention of a crisis, the employees play the most important role, and they must not only be competent to carry out their tasks, but must also have personal integrity. The competence of employees is measured by their training, their knowledge, skills and experience, and personal integrity by their professionalism, their dedication and loyalty to the organization and its mission, vision, values, and culture. Successful management, after all, is best reflected in its willingness to recognize, encourage, and develop in employees what is best in them and not what is worst in them. Phase 6. Dealing with change is fundamental to preventing and managing a crisis. In change management, it is very important to assess when to actually start changes, with which resources, as well as with which methods and techniques to best prepare and implement it all. Many think that this is the end of the process, but it is not. While it is very important to implement changes, it is even more important to stabilize these changes and fully integrate them into the system. Only in this way can there be significant strengthening of the organization's resilience to crisis. And phase 7, however, it is crucial to understand that processes are never fully completed, but the processes are never fully completed, but have to continue with a new cycle of change, including lessons learned and further review, followed by new improvements and innovations. Created model is a universal and is also completely open to further review and improvement. It is applicable in all areas, in both stable conditions and in dramatic circumstances of instability and global risks, such as current coronavirus pandemic. Dear colleagues, bearing in mind that processes of coronavirus pandemic is still ongoing, one should not make any final judgments. It is possible, however, to identify certain initial messages and lessons. Let us name just a few. Although crisis situations are by their nature a race against time, preventive actions that does not lose its significance even then. On contrary, it is precisely in crisis situation that the most important thing is to solve burning problems, not be late and not miss opportunities. If organizations are able to effectively and efficiently master quality management, risk management, and change management in stable conditions, they will be much more successful in crisis situations. Employees who know and are able to employ both risk-based and crisis-based thinking will better and easier predict and recognize potential risk and interpret early warning signals more comprehensively. In conditions of more frequent crises, employees will learn to live with crisis and to think on the basis of crisis. In a word, they will be more ready to face the next crisis, regardless of all the challenges and uncertainties. Just as everything has its two sides, so this pandemic, with all the devastating consequences it brings with it, can also be a real opportunity for overall review, improvement, and innovation. This pandemic can also be an opportunity to re-examine ourselves, our actions and behavior, as well as our moral values that we have largely lost somewhere. It is an opportunity to turn more to family and friends, realize our life priorities, appreciate and take care of our health much more, and especially nature itself, on which everything depends and which is able to put everything in order, even when we think there is almost no more hope. A crisis is always a signal to redefine our system of success, to improve it and to innovate it. Finally, in managing crisis, the most important thing is to take preventive action and not to let the crisis manage us, but to let us manage crisis. Dear colleagues, never forget, if you learn the lesson from failure, you are on the road to success. If you do not learn the lessons from success, you are on the road to failure. The elaboration of this complex model of crisis prevention requires much more space and time than we have at our disposal here. This presentation, as well as some of my other works in fields of crisis prevention and crisis management, are available to readers on ResearchGate, the global professional network for scientists and researchers. Thank you very much.
Mr. Luburic, thank you very much. As you said, you have intensively published on this area over 70 scientific articles, which covers all this detail about quality management, risk management, operational risk management. Thank you very much for this very analytical, colorful, and informative presentation, which stressed the importance of plan, do, check, act. That was very informative. Thank you very much. If now we can open the floor for questions. And if there are no questions, we can move to Ms. Milena Vucini.
Thank you very much.